I'm going to read the story Patrick today. I read Patrick to my very first class and it's got great pictures in it. This is a story about a young man called Patrick who set out from his house one day to buy a violin. In the town, the streets were full of stalls. One sold vegetables, one sold fish, and another sold clothes. The stalls were very interesting, but Patrick did not stop until he came to one kept by Mr. Onions. On his stall he had a broken jug, an old lamp, a mousetrap, and all sorts of things that people didn't want any more. "Have you a violin to sell?" asked Patrick. "You're in luck," said Mr. Onions. "I have just one." Patrick bought the violin with his only silver piece. He was so pleased that he ran as fast as he could into the fields. When he got there, he blew the dust off the violin. Then he sat down by the pond and began to play a tune. As he played, the most extraordinary thing happened. One by one, the fish in the pond began to jump up all over the place, and they were flying in the air. What is more, they were different colours, and they were singing along to the music. Just then, a little girl and boy came along the road. Their names were Kath and Mick. "Did you do that?" asked Mick, pointing to the fish in the air. And Patrick said, "Yes." Then he played another tune, and the string tied to Kath's hair turned into red ribbons, and the laces in Mick's boots turned into blue ribbons. And so the three of them went down the road together. Soon they came along to an orchard of apple trees. Patrick played his violin, and the leaves on the trees changed to all different bright colours. Instead of the apples on the trees, it began to grow pears, bananas, cakes and ice creams, and slices of hot buttered toast. Kath and Mick ran about the trees and helped themselves to whatever they liked. As they were eating, a flock of pigeons flew down, and Patrick played his violin again. The birds began to sprout bright new feathers until they were the most beautiful birds you have ever seen. Kath and Mick fed them on crumbs of chocolate cake. After Patrick and the children had gone a little further, they met some cows. They were white with black spots, but when Patrick played his violin, the cows became covered in coloured stars and they started to dance to the music. So they went along the road together until they met a tramp. The tramp had whiskers and a hat and a broken top where his hair poked through. He was very dirty, and as he blew his pipe, some smoke flew out of it. "That's a lovely tune you're playing," said the man. "There's nothing I like better than the violin." So Patrick played it even harder, and the sparks of smoke from the pipe became fireworks. On they went along the road. It was like a procession. Kath and Mick with their ribbons, and the fish and the birds singing, the cows dancing, and the man puffing fireworks from his pipe, and Patrick playing his violin. Before long they met a tinker and his wife and a horse and a cart. "Look at our procession," shouted Kath. "Isn't it fun?" "How can he enjoy it?" asked the tinker's wife. "He's very thin and I don't know what to do for him. He's got a cough and a cold and a stomachache and a headache. We have to travel very slowly. I don't know how we shall get back to town before dark." "Let me play my violin and see what happens," said Patrick. So he played a tune, and you can see what happened. The tinker started to get fatter and fatter. He lost his cough and his cold and his stomachache and his headache until he was well and smiling again. And not only that, look what happened to his horse and cart. The tinker and his wife climbed on, and so did Patrick and Kath and Mick and the tramp and the fish and the birds and the cows. They all galloped home together. and they got back to town before it was dark.